Hey, are you sober and also alive right now? Are you not sober and slowly dying inside? If so, this podcast might be for you. Here on Sober During Crisis, we interview all different people from all different walks and all different lengths of sobriety about how they're staying sober and sane during these trying times. This is Sober During Crisis. What's going on, everybody? It's your host, Ange Buxton, back at it again with another episode. I want to start off with a couple of shout-outs here. I haven't done that yet. I've been worried about anonymity, but I decided, if you're publicly posting that you like the show, you deserve a little bit of a shout-out. If you're privately messaging me, you also deserve it, but just let me know that that's okay, and I can throw you a shout-out on the show. First one goes to Big Hat Paul on Twitter. Told me this show is really helping him. I appreciate you for letting me know, Big Hat Paul. Also, I hope your neck doesn't hurt from your big hat. Shout out to Irene for spamming the Facebook page. Thank you so much. If you haven't smashed that like button on the Facebook page yet, please go ahead and do it. I know there's a lot of different ways you can follow the show, but that Facebook group is growing and I'm really excited about that. I'd also like to give a shout out to Gino Capino. You know who you are, for leaving that great Apple Podcast review, that amazing 5-star review. Thank you to anyone who's left a review. If you haven't, please do that. It helps us get more recognition. It just builds the credibility of the show. And also, I just want a quick teeny little muscle flex. I've never done this kind of a flex because I haven't had anything flexible. But I saw that on Player FM, which is a podcast hosting site, if you go Best Sober Podcast, Sober During Crisis is now number 4, and it's behind some real heavy hitters. I mean, wow, thank you guys so much for following and listening. It's cool to see the show getting some traction, just because obviously I work really hard in it, but also because that lets me know that this must be helping other people, right? So if it is helping you and you want to let me know, I would love to keep doing shout outs. So yeah, hit me up, slide in those DMs. You know what it is. All right, this week we have a crazy, amazing episode. I always say that, this is chock full of resources, and this is just exploding with resources, and this is just overflowing with, and it sounds really hyperbolic, but let me tell you, this right here is chock full, overflowing, and exploding with resources. Our guest this week's name is Valentine, and they have 2 different sober podcasts that they do. They're on a board of directors for the Buddhist recovery thing, and just so many people. How do you know so many people in recovery? I'll tell you how. You just continuously show up, you volunteer your time, and you just do service work. And that's kind of a model that I've been living out in my life. I now chair 2 different meetings, which is incredible. I'm always working on this show, and part of that, in these past 2 weeks, I've had this conversation with Valentine in the back of my mind of if I keep filling up my schedule with recovery-based things, then there's just no way that I'm going to lose sight of my sobriety. So I just got to keep putting that next foot forward in the sense of how can I continuously give back what was so freely given to me? And that's what this podcast is for me. It's I struggled beyond something I've even attempted to describe in words on this show. Of course I've talked about relapsing a lot, but the fact that I'm sober, y'all, is a true freaking miracle. Anyone who's known me in the past 10 years can tell you, I've had stints of sobriety and then stints of just going back out. And anytime I've gone back out, it's hard. I don't just have a beer. I'm out drinking for the month, at least a month. I remember one time trying to do the ratio for the past 5 years of how many months had I been sober in AA and how many months had I been out drinking, and it was almost equal, and over a 5-year span. That's just to the extent that I struggled with trying to get and maintain sobriety. And now that I have sustained sobriety, I have to keep talking about how other people are doing it with them so I can keep it. And that's a beautiful thing. Something I got out of this episode that I want to preface here at the beginning is that there are so many things outside of AA and NA and your typical 12-step programs that can work for people. Something I did not verbalize during this conversation with Valentine is that for me, AA is really the way. It's been the only way for me to have sustained recovery. That doesn't mean, though, that I'm judgmental of others or that I think that other people have to do AA or you have to do a 12-step. That's where I really disagree with a lot of what we might call old timers or people that are strictly by the book. I think you need to do what's right for you. So your program is yours, end of story, all right? And for me, it's been AA. That's just what works. For me, I have to tell myself I'm an alcoholic and an addict, or I might forget, and then I'm going to slip up and lose it. And that is a fear of mine. But I'm also starting to kind of drift away from that idea of like shaming myself for drinking. And it's because of conversations like this. And I'm not saying I'm going to go drink even in the slightest. It's just more that like, yeah, like, of course, there were slip-ups in my past. I didn't have tools. I didn't have community. So now that I have those things, I have truly no excuse to drink or use. And I don't really want to. My life is just mad better. So why would I want to throw that away? I'm just really starting to think about my recovery in a much more comprehensive way. And having conversations like this one are making me zoom out and look at my recovery in a more holistic way and ask myself, how do I make this more sustainable? Yeah, I'm feeling real good and almost, I just hit a year, but I almost have a pink cloud all over again just because I'm continuing to ask, like, how are you doing it? Okay, but how are you doing it? All right, next, how are you doing it? So just continuing to ask people and have those conversations has opened my mind to the fact that there is no one right way. There is no one size fits all when it comes to recovery. So do what's right for you. The only thing you have to do is not drink, right? Like the only thing you have to do is not use. And I think it's really important that we continue to have these conversations. So that was a little longer than usual. And I just want to say before we jump in fully that you can follow our guest this week on Instagram at Going Somewhere Sober. It's Hunty Valentine on Instagram. And they're just doing so many freaking amazing things. So yeah, let's jump into it. Let's learn some stuff together here on Sober During Crisis. I got these fancy ass ginger ales. I'm obsessed with them.
A fancy ginger ale?
I know. Awesome. It's so spicy though. That's the only thing. They're like, because it has like real ginger.
Oh, you know what? I've had those before and they're so good. I forgot about them.
Yeah. Like stuff like this and like seltzer now, I didn't think I would ever like, and now I drink them like every night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yes. But the thing about seltzer is it gets me to drink more water, I realized.
Hell yeah. It's just bubbles, and I bought this plum one. It's a little too plummy for me, but it is good. It's very refreshing.
Nice. I'm drinking coconut water right now.
Oh, that's the good shit. That stuff has Vita Coco. Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like chock full of potassium.
Yeah, the only thing that I wish that existed that I haven't been able to find much of is like, I want something that's like seltzer water, but a little sweet, but not too sweet. Like I want some sugar, they're all like sugar free. I'm like, there was on Shark Tank, there was a soda that they made out of monk fruit sweetener, which is like non-sugar sweetener. That's really good. And like honey. But like it didn't win. So they're not going to make it. And I'm really sad.
God damn it. That's the bad part about watching Shark Tank. I'm like, they're not gonna win. Psych you out. But Kickstarter's lit.
I like your setup. I haven't seen the setup before.
Oh, like, thanks. Yeah, this is my little studio. I got this little mixer over here.
That's badass.
Yeah, I try to paint, but as you can see, it's just a blank canvas because I'm trash. Will you like walk me through some of the ways you identify?
Yeah, totally. I identify as queer. Gender non-binary. I identify as gay. I still like I like gay. It's complicated, Yeah, and I'd say those are the ways I identify mostly. And like femme.
Word. What's up, non-binary fam? We're in the house.
Yeah.
I know. I'm more obviously masked, but yeah, I still say gay. I say gay because I don't like the word lesbian. Like, whenever I hear the word lesbian, I just picture like a lizard wearing lipstick. You know what I'm saying? Like it's an ugly word, and I'm like, I don't want to identify as something that ugly sounding. Like,
yeah. I like lesbian because it's like more of a word, and also I've always liked it because it was more femme, and I've always identified as a lesbian. I guess I identify as lesbian, as gay, like, and my gender and my sexuality seemed to, and like how I have relationships looks more like my lesbian friends, you know, than any gay friends I've ever had. So I've always, and like my gender matches more of like my butch lesbian friends. I'm always like, it's like I feel like I'm a butch lesbian, but it's like,
no, I feel like a gay dude all the time, honestly. Like gender expression and gender identity are like they're just so complicated, and it's super fluid for me. But my partner is like, she's a lesbian. That's how she identifies. She's very femme. And then I hear that word, and for some reason it just makes me cringe. Like I don't know what it is. Random. Yeah. Oh, what's your name? Will you introduce as much as you'd like to be introduced?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Valentine. They, them pronouns.
Hey.
I like to identify. I also like to introduce that I'm a part of like the Recovery Dharma community, as well as Tempest, Sobriety.
Lit.
And those are the main. Yeah.
Will you tell me a little bit about? I've never heard of either of these things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm serious.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Recovery Dharma. They're Buddhist centered. I like they have a tagline that's like, Buddhist inspired, not Buddhist required. So like mindfulness and learning, like meditation, learning how to like sit through cravings and stuff. Yeah, they were funded by like a really great group that wanted to focus on like being trauma informed and being like a safe space for minorities and women and stuff, because there was a lot of like not so safe stuff happening, and so they created this like trauma informed Buddhist inspired recovery program.
That's what's up.
Yeah, it's really great. So they have BuddhistRecovery.org and they have BuddhistRecovery.online, and those are great resources. And there's like a free book you can get on the website or you can buy on Amazon. And then Tempest Sobriety. So Tempest Sobriety was created by Holly Whitaker, and she wrote the book Quit Like a Woman. And it used to be called Hip Sobriety, which was a blog that she wrote. And its focus is on kind of throwing out the book, the recovery book, and like starting fresh and looking at like all of the different like modern science around addiction, and like how can we have like a feminine centric approach that like is focused on like support and empowerment rather than like shame.
Yes.
And,
oh my God.
Like, outdated literature.
Wow, like the fact that I haven't heard of these is one, just devastating, and two, it does give me a little bit of hope that there's people actually breaking off and doing alternative things, because for so long I'm like, I can't possibly be the only one that feels like this. There's no way that no one else is noticing. Yeah, the shame stuff, I mean, that definitely kept me going back out a lot, feeling very like in the margins, even more so in an AA or NA room, just because of being queer or because of whatever other there is. Like, I go to AA meetings, I look around, it's like, dang, like this room could not be less diverse. Like I might as well just be going to actual church. Recovery, Dharma, Tempest, Sobriety.
Yeah, and I liked what you were saying, and I totally agree. And like AA was created for a very specific reason, and it was very revolutionary. It still is revolutionary. And it, things still get inspired by it, but it was written at a very specific time and it had a lot of influences at that time. And so for things to be created now with different influences, also in a time of social media, when there's a shit ton more input by a larger group of people with different experiences, you're able to create programs that hold space for more people, because there are a lot of people that cannot access AA. And I know AA really wants to be accessible, but no matter what, like if AA stays the same forever, it's not going to be accessible for a large amount of people. So so it's really cool. Yeah, it's really cool, like what people are doing out there.
I'm going to check these out. I've been collecting resources on the show, as well as just talking about how people are surviving COVID. My thing, as I've also found my recovery growing, and my idea of what recovery looks like has shifted since starting this. I had someone last week, who made a really, really good case for not identifying as an addict or an alcoholic, but as identifying as a person in recovery.
Yeah.
And to me, I was just blown away by like this person's, the way they explained it, and just like, I was like, oh, like, because I always thought if I don't identify as an alcoholic, then I'll forget and I'll drink. But
Yeah,
it
I've heard
doesn't
that a lot.
necessarily have to be like that.
No. Yeah, I like the word sober. Like, I'm sober. I have always been more attracted to positive language, like language positive culture. So using something like alcoholic, like there's a permanence to it. And being Buddhist is like very all about impermanence, you know? So and same with mental health recovery. Like when things have like such a permanence, like if I identify with like, you know, if I'm bipolar and I identify as like, I'm like, that's my main identifier. Like I identify with something I'm struggling with. And it's like, so I like to identify more with the positives where I'm like, I'm sober. Like that's the thing that I'm actually doing. That's a positive thing. Whereas like the word alcoholic has a lot of connotation in it that has nothing to do with the actual fact of not drinking or of like being addicted to the substance of alcohol.
Yeah.
And so I've never really, I used that term was helpful for me when I was actively drinking. And I was like, you know, that was the word I knew to, you know, how to express like what I was struggling with. I'm like, oh, I'm an alcoholic. And that was huge for me to tell myself. But since I stopped drinking, it never made sense for me. Yeah. To be like, I'm an alcoholic. Like, you know, I'm sober and I'm in recovery for like a lot of things, you know?
Yeah. That's so, I've heard people say too, to not, instead of saying like, I am bipolar, of saying like, I have bipolar, which I've now started doing.
I'm living with.
Living with is lit. I like that. Yeah. How long have you been trudging the road to happy destiny?
I've did like 3.5 years now.
What's up? That's awesome. Yeah.
And then and 5 years previous to that was when I entered recovery for the first time. So it was like I went to rehab, and you know, it was a really great rehab and stuff, but it's like after rehab it took me 5 years to finally find the community and the wisdom that actually worked to help keep me sober. So it was,
that's what's up.
But the past 3.5 years have been really amazing.
Yeah, that was my experience too, of like I had to keep coming back, and I now I've just got 1 year, but I have in the past had, I think I had, no, it wasn't full 3 years, but it was almost 3 years. And
Nice.
Same thing, we're just having to recalibrate and just, yeah, it's a lot of decision making. Like you have to decide, like, you know, or I guess when it gets so bad, you don't have any choices anymore.
And thankfully things like Tempest are trying to catch people before that. They're trying to eradicate the idea of rock bottom. So like, yeah, like I hit a rock bottom and stuff. You know, I had to try to kill myself quite a few times before I pulled myself up. But what's great about things like Tempest is they're trying to make recovery accessible to people that are just questioning their relationship to alcohol. And because in the past, it's like if you question your relationship to alcohol and you Google, am I an alcoholic? And if you don't fit what their little questionnaire is, then you easily can go on having a problematic relationship to alcohol.
Yeah.
I've actually met many people that were like, oh, I drank maybe 1 glass of wine a day, but it had this negative effect on me. And it wasn't until I found an organization like Tempest that's like, you know, will hold space for me to recover, not have to call myself an alcoholic to be there. And like, yeah, so that's another thing with alcoholics. Like if you're an alcoholic, you're like, what are the people that don't fit that category? What about those people that don't hit a rock bottom? You know, they used to call it like someone was like, you had a high bottom.
High bottom, yeah.
And that's like, that's a shame. It's like shameful term, honestly. It's
it is, yeah. I remember being like, my bottom's not low enough yet. I got to go back out. I got to try again. Let me.
Yeah. So that's, I think I'm excited about the future because there are people that are now just doing the scientific research to be like, oh, actually no one should drink. And it's like actually really normal that we're all having these really problematic relationships with a neurotoxin that causes cancer.
Yo. Oh my God, right? I think of all these, you know, just I had to use this hand sanitizer. It was the really ghetto kind that looks like it's like a 5-hour energy shot. I don't know if but it smells like straight up tequila. And I'm like, this smells like something I used to put in my body every day. Like, and like just now after having a year and all this stuff with hand sanitizer and everything and thinking about this is the shit I would literally ingest on to stay alive or to deal with my emotions, and having that removal, it does seem crazy. It seems crazy that it's so normal.
Yeah, and it's like what they use in cars and rocket fuel. It's the same thing. It's ethanol. Like it's all the same fucking thing. And then if you trace, like if you follow the money, so the book Quit Like a Woman is one of the best books I've read on alcohol before, because it like follows the money to like the research studies that were done on the negative effects on alcohol back in the time of Prohibition. And after Prohibition ended, they lost their funding, and so guess who funded the research? The alcohol industry. And that's when they came up with alcoholism. That's when they came up with, it's not alcohol, it's you that's the problem. The disease of alcohol. It's like,
yeah, that's really hurting my brain. I'm feeling too many things right now. I think I need a minute. No, but that's crazy. Yeah, somebody said that with COVID too, and it warped my brain, where it was like, you know, obviously because at a national level, no one wants to take responsibility or actually set guidelines that'll keep people safe, and so the idea is like, oh, if you catch it, it's your fault. You know, you didn't wear a mask or you didn't take proper precautions, which in some cases is 1000% true. But the flip side being, there just isn't the right leadership to tell people what they should be doing on one hand, you know?
Yeah. I love what British Columbia did. And they literally had no one talking about COVID except for one doctor. And so British Columbia, they only listened to her advice and her advice only. Whereas here we have so many voices telling us what to do, what not to do, and they're creating mixed messages. And it's like, yeah, in BC, it's like only one person talked about it, and it was a doctor, and she's been doing great.
Wow. Wow. See, and we just dropped out the CDC, man. I can't with this, man. But that's such a, I want to read this book because that's such a new way of looking at alcohol, and capitalism and I have a very funky relationship wherein I was fully bought in, you know, up until very recently, and I've started to realize that like it doesn't really matter how much I hustle or how hard I work. Like there are certain things that just aren't gonna happen. Like it really, like that fallacy of hard work is how you get shit done. Like sometimes it's luck. Like sometimes, you know, just sometimes shit happens. I was gonna ask just like, what's like a quote unquote normal day for you, or like how has COVID and kind of changed your life and your recovery?
So when COVID hit at first, I was so busy. I had so many projects going on. I had, you know, my work moved home, but like suddenly I was more busy at work. I had more meetings. I work as a peer support counselor. And so I was meeting people online, but it was the same work and I was just doing it more. So at first I had less time to really, I mean, it was good for me for a moment because I didn't feel the same COVID fear everyone else was feeling. I was just really busy and kind of disconnected. And eventually I got into therapy and I was just like talking to friends, and I started recognizing that I really started thinking about the things that I needed and the friendships that I needed and the conversations I wanted to be having. And so I started creating space for that by like not taking on new projects, and you know, some like a lot of my recovery responsibilities shifted when COVID hit. So times and meetings changed, and I just like didn't put them back in my schedule. And so it's actually been a really nice break from recovery meetings, which, you know, usually in recovery, you're not thinking like, oh, I took a break from meetings and that's a good thing. But holy fuck, I've been so involved in a lot of meetings and many different recovery programs, and had a lot of leadership and responsibilities involved in them. And so this break was actually really fantastic. And I've been able to kind of plug into different projects and friendships. Like I only have like a handful or two of them, but like ones that are really like filling me up right now.
That's what's up.
So I've lately got really into foot baths. Like I've been taking care of my feet.
What's up?
Yeah. And it's just like so nice. It's just like a nice little
treat yourself.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
way to treat myself. Not something I'd usually do. I got really into working out,
Word.
which I like. I've like for the longest time because I'm a smaller built person. I've always been like, oh, I'm gonna get huge someday because why not? And like it's always kind of this ongoing joke that I've always said. But now I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize that I could experience so much joy from lifting weights. I
Yeah.
had like I bought this like dumbbell set, and they're like from Bowflex, and it's like a yeah, it like goes from like 5 pounds to 55 pounds. And
Word.
I bought it. It was like an impulse buy. It was like a $300 impulse buy. I got like,
Yeah.
like 4 months, 5 months before COVID, and I never touched. And I was like, why did I buy those? And then COVID happened, and I'm like, oh my fucking God, I'm so glad I have these.
Yeah, you just saved yourself so much money because like all workout supplies went up like 60% in price and everything. So
Yeah.
that's what's up.
Yeah. So I've been doing that a lot. I like take 2 hours and I'll just work out and like put on music and dance. I like probably dance more than I work out, but it's a really good time.
Dancing is my favorite cardio. I do miss that is one thing I miss the most, arguably, besides
Mm-hmm.
just seeing my family is dancing. But that's what's up. So doing less, stepping back and reevaluating your responsibilities. Are you somebody that often over volunteers yourself?
I often end up in charge of everything.
Oh man,
and
that's what's up though.
so it's nice to not be in charge of everything. And it's like I've been working on a new podcast project,
What's
and
up?
it's really exciting because it's coming out at a very different angle than I have before. Whereas the podcast I work on right now, which is the Buddhist Recovery Network podcast, it comes out every other week, but it's more like we record and then I edit really fast and then we throw it up. It's a lot. It's not it's not on my schedule, and it's not like a ton of production. And so the podcast that I'm working on right now, I've been working on for quite a few months, and I've just been letting myself have time to like kind of dream and write down all the different ideas and all the different people I want to work on with it. And today I actually started recording for the first time, and it's like this. We're doing a short series. It's going to be full of a lot of just like short 3-episode series on different topics with different people. And but yeah, I started one on baths and taking baths for healing and recovery. And I don't know, it's really interesting. We recorded like an hour-long conversation. I'm going to use like 10 minutes of it for like the first half of one of our episodes. So it's going to be
editing takes so long. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
Oh man.
So I'm excited.
That's awesome. So it's just things that you can do for yourself in recovery, or can you tell me a little more about the premise?
Yeah, so it's going to be titled Recovery Discovery.
Nice.
And the premise of it is I want it to be like a one-stop shop in a sense for resources. So I want to explore all the different resources, all the different recovery communities, different recovery tools, and it's specifically focused on recovery, not just sobriety. So we will cover things like trauma recovery, sexual assault recovery, mental health recovery. I want to go into gender as a form of recovery.
Oh my God, yes. Please let me stop at that one-stop shop. Oh my God.
Because I want to look at like recovering from the binary, recovering from growing up in a society that's unsafe for queer people. So I just want to explore all these different topics with different people. And I'm thankfully working on the Buddhist Recovery Network podcast. I've been in contact with so many amazing like authors and teachers. So I'm really excited to reach out to them as I like kind of hone in on what specifically I want to talk about with them.
That's awesome. So you have like almost like a Mitt Romney binder full of women, but it's like a binder full of recovery, and you're just waiting to like open that up. That's what's up. Yeah, I love that. Let me know when that drops, or if there's anything at all I could do to help. Like, you can put me in that binder. But I love that idea. This started right at the start of COVID because I had similar thing where I was just like, I'm gonna go crazy if I don't do something, and I had time to sit in my brain and think about what I actually wanted to do for recovery outside of just go to 12-step meetings, because that's where a lot of my recovery was focused, and I realized it wasn't really cutting it. I was feeling crazy, like, it was like 1 week not having them, and I was almost like back to the emotional dysregulation I had a year ago. So like having this and getting to talk to people about alternative solutions has been like freaking lit, and I'd love to add another one to my repertoire. I like to ask this question, and feel free to pass, but I like to ask, is there anything that you learned about yourself in recovery, or is there any trait that you've noticed that has come out in recovery that you're like, wow, why am I like this? I wish I could change this. Is there anything like that that's come up for you since getting sober?
Oh yeah, all of them. I mean, you as soon as you start to like look at yourself without, numbing yourself, you really just see all the different dimensions of your being. And at first you want to just judge them all, and you want to be really insecure about all of them. And because some of them will come out, and they'll come out in a like unskillful way. But for me, it's been about accepting all the different facets of my being and learning how to harness them in like positive ways. So, maybe I was, too intense, and I harnessed that into how can I use that intensity to really focus on helping people in different groups, or or I needed more attention than most people. So I just like got more involved in things and signed up for more like responsibilities so that I was connected to more people. So yeah, I don't think there's a part of my character that I have just been like, go away. It's more like, how can I like hold space for this and hold space for how it's coming up, even if it's something I'm not happy with, but like, how can I hold space with that and like kind of direct it in a way that's like helpful for me and the community.
Now that I asked you that and got your answer, I guess I have to stop asking it, because that was like the best fucking. You're like, well, actually, like what I do is I take all my bad stuff, I just kind of use it like a windmill, and it just kind of it energizes, then the whole city eats. Yes, everybody eats. That's what's up. Yeah, I love that idea of like taking on leadership when you need more attention. I realized that that's something, a big motivating factor for me stepping up my recovery in this Zoom era where I'm like really sick of not being able to have one-on-one conversations before and after the meeting. That was my favorite part, getting to check in on everybody and, hey, how's it going? Hey, how you doing? Hey, and do all that. And now that that's out of the picture, because there's really no meeting before the meeting or meeting after the meeting, I have to call more people, and then two, I just started trying to chair or like, lead it and run it, because I just started feeling so disconnected. So I definitely can relate to that. I'd also like to ask if there's any weird or like just surprising hobbies that you've gotten into. I know you said exercise, but outside of exercise, anything you've gotten into in the past 3 years that you're like, you never would have thought.
Sobriety, like the fact that sobriety is like this huge hobby of mine. Like it's such a fun hobby. I get to like meet people all over the world and like nerd out about recovery and trauma. I was the like hip, drug dealer in Capitol Hill, Seattle. I like lived and breathed in the, the gay neighborhood, and I clubbed all the time and had a lot of fun and partied and sold Molly. And it's funny, 'cause, and I like nerded out about drugs. And now it's like I nerd out about the history of recovery and like, yeah, just all the different recovery programs and like how we can like help change the face of recovery to be more accessible. Like how the fuck is this my life?
That's so funny. No one's mentioned Molly. A lot of people don't. And that was definitely a big part of my using repertoire. It was one of my faves. And people don't talk about it that much. It's weird. Maybe it's just a specific, you have to like, I love dance. That's what I love, dancing. I love going, getting my sweat on. Like that is, but now I can do it. I do it now without drugs, and it's still fun as shit.
Yeah. I'm actually glad. So I was a raver when I was like, 16.
Plur life, bro.
Yeah. I had Plur life. And so I'm actually really grateful for that, because there is a lot that I learned from that time and how to express myself. And in sobriety, I've learned that I can very quickly access those like states of being, and I don't need drugs, and I can dance on the dance floor. Like, I sit through some discomfort, but I also sat through a lot of discomfort while I was waiting for the pill to hit. You know? So
and then waiting in line for the bathroom, like
exactly.
Yeah, that's what, I remember I've seen Cascade a lot of times sober, and it's still, I did a whole Bonnaroo sober, and it was like, It was actually super fun. Like, you can do everything. The silent disco, you just pretend like you're rolling. It's the same shit. No one fucking knows.
Yeah, I've also had experiences where I like had these moments where I felt a feeling or had a moment with someone, and I was like, oh, I always thought that this feeling was because of the drugs, but I found out that this was just like normal part of feeling connected to community. And because for so long, I was always like, for, coming of age, I was doing Molly, and that was like my first community, that I just assumed all of the experiences I was having was because of the drugs, because I was high on Molly. And yeah, and then I've experienced these like just intense levels of gratitude and love for someone, or wanting to give someone a spontaneous hug, or those experiences weren't
wanting to do finger lights in their eyes, like
exactly.
But no, I'm so glad you verbalized that. I haven't heard that verbalized, but I definitely, there's been times in sobriety where the same, where you just feed off the energy. You're like, I thought I needed drugs to feed off energy, but brains are a weird place. Like, do you learn a lot about brain like cognitive stuff behind in either of the what am I trying to ask? My bad.
Buddhism in general is like a study of the mind. That's literally like the whole point of it, is like studying your mind, but like from the inside. And then with Tempest goes over, one of my favorite things about Tempest, if you do the complete program, they guide you through like, the biopsychosocial model and like the brain science of addiction, and like, it's all.
Wow, that's amazing. I guess I don't know a lot about Buddhism. I thought because I thought it was something very different.
Yeah, people usually think it's like, they're like, oh, it's a religion.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And it's funny because like Buddhism actually originally started out with Buddha taking a lot of the self-care, like self-discovery kind of tools out of religion, because the religion at the time was Hinduism, and Buddha was like, wanted that to be accessible, like meditation and the different like practices and philosophy, wanted those to be accessible to people without dogma, without having to believe in a god or a goddess in order to have access to like a spiritual, like healing experience. And so that's kind of where Buddhism comes from. So yeah, people can use Buddhism as a religion, but primarily Buddhism is like the first form of psychology, where it's like the study of the mind and how the mind works, and like how to basically befriend your chaotic mess of a mind to a place where you can like start to like control it in like a positive way.
Yeah. That's gotta be something I definitely check out, because I'm at that point right now where I'm like, man, I'm annoying. Jeez Louise, and I know there's solutions to that outside of medications. Do you have any other recovery resources for folks?
I should have a lot of them.
No, it's totally okay. I just want to ask now, because you've already dropped like 4 really awesome ones. So I'm like, anything else I can get.
I'm trying to think. For me, I mean, honestly, the more books on recovery that you read, the better, I'd say. That was really helpful for me to do an earlier. For the longest time, I thought there was just 12 steps and Buddhism, and those were the only books you can find. And there's a lot of books that just don't focus on either of those, that are like integral recovery is really solid. And they talk about 12 steps a bit, but they're focused on like how to build a holistic recovery program for yourself. There's The Globalization of Addiction is a really good book by Bruce Alexander. And he talks about the displacement theory of addiction, using Vancouver, BC as an example. And that book is so beautifully written, and it's really getting me to think about the times in my life and communities I've been displaced from, and how that relates to my own story of addiction.
Wow, already powerful. Yeah, because I think of the same thing with rave culture, where it's like your family, and you have, the mom and dad, and that whole kind of like a chosen family aspect of it. Yeah.
And then another book that I loved was 8-Step Recovery. And 8-Step Recovery is written by one of my friends, Vimala Sara Mason John. Her and Dr. Paramabandhu wrote it. And it focuses on Buddhism and recovery, but the book is written so well, and like they have all these little exercises you do throughout the whole book. And so it's not like 12 steps. It's something you can do in relation to 12 steps at the same time. It's kind of like working an 11th step, really. but you read through the book and they do, there's a lot of like self-reflection. It's kind of like homework that your sponsor might give you, but it's like really, it's a really powerful book to read. That was one of my favorite recovery reads for sure. I read through it a couple times with a group of friends, and like doing the exercises and like checking in with themselves about the same things over a different period of time, really, like I was able to see a lot of growth, and it was really cool.
That's amazing. I love that. So outside of books, are there any other tips or tricks you have for maybe a newcomer or somebody struggling specifically right now, given the political climate and chaos?
Yeah, Recovery Dharma has like 200 plus, maybe 300 recovery meetings online right now.
Nice.
And they have so if you go to recoverydharma.online, there is a link up at the top that mentions like the online meetings, and there's like a spreadsheet, and it's just a giant spreadsheet. So like literally any day, most times you can find a really great meeting where you'll be with a great group of people and you'll meditate, and then, go around the room, share, talk about recovery together.
That's amazing. All right. I've been, there's these meditation meetings. My counselor told me about them, and I have actively resisted going to them. I have not attended one, and that keeps every week. I'm like, yeah, I got to get to that. I try and do the daily calm. It's literally 5 minutes, and I'm so out of practice at this point. It is painful, but to think of a solution in which I'm not meditating separate from my recovery, but it's like worked in, there's that community aspect. Like this is some radical ass shit. Like I'm up on this. I love this.
And if you've done the 5-minute ones for a while, like you might also it might be time to just skip the 5 minutes, and even though it's painful, like go for longer ones, because the longer ones will help the shorter ones be easier too. And it's like, I like to look at meditation, like, people are like, oh, it's so hard, but it's like, we sit down for hours watching fucking TV and shit. Like we know how to sit still.
Yeah.
And like, we just have to be okay with whatever comes up, and like not try to tell ourselves we're doing it wrong, because even if we're sitting there thinking about things the whole time, the fact that we're sitting there quietly trying to do something, that's meditation. It's like it's just observing. As long as we're like watching and noticing if we judge or not, it's just like an intentional thing.
Like, what's your favorite gift from sobriety?
Yeah, probably community. I mean, I had pockets of community in my life, like the rave scene, and then I had pockets of community in this like queer scene in Seattle I was a part of. But now that my life, and it's not just recovery, like I often, it's easy to think that because we're in recovery, we're different from other people, or we have some like, we're fundamentally different in some way. But it's like the element that I think is really fantastic about recovery is that we're in a community focused on healing. And there's many other communities focused on healing besides recovery, but the fact that we get to be plugged in this way is just so fantastic. And so my friendships in recovery that have stayed with me the last 3 years are definitely forever friendships. And
nice.
I've had forever friendships in the past, but like the fact that I get to have forever friendships where we're focused on a similar level of healing together, and like learning a lot of tools, how to hold space and how to be good peers for each other, it's just it's next level, and I'm really grateful that I got to fall down to pick up and like, find these kind of communities.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'm still really obsessed with this idea of like, there is no bottom. Like I used to think, oh, the bottom came up to hit me. And now realizing like, the bottom was how I felt inside the whole time, every time, anytime I drank, anytime I did a drug I didn't want to do, just because I felt like I had to, or maybe I physically did need to. And now having friendships on top of it, it's like, oh, like I actually have people that I feel like would give a shit about what's going on with me. Because I'm at 1 year, to hear somebody at 3 talk to me about their community and how it's growing, and it's like, it's so exciting for me to think of a future like that.
Yeah, and the bottom only exists because there hasn't been necessarily the framework to be caught before the bottom. And that's why it's really exciting that there's all these new philosophies and recovery communities that exist that can, be attractive to us maybe sooner than later, and like catch us before we get to that really awful place. So yeah, so I'm like, my connection web is so large now because of recovery and because I sought out like every different type of community out there and just tried to get involved in some, like the ones that were accessible for me here in this small town Olympia and like online. So yeah, I don't know. I love that. And like all those connections have like created different experiences and opportunities that I never thought it like this. Like this is fucking rad. Like we're podcasting right now. Like,
I know. Wait, so I just when I hit you up on Instagram, I had no clue that you were someone so involved and so connected to a sober community. Like sometimes I get people on here and they're just out of rehab, and sometimes, you know, a lot of times I'm talking with people that I either know or is a friend of a friend or a friend of a friend of a friend, right? So to have somebody that I really have no connection with you other than the fact that you're a sober human and I'm a sober human, to toot your horn for a second, I'm really flattered and honored that you're here. And like, this is crazy. How did you first find out about these? Because I haven't heard of either of the Recovery Dharma or Tempest Sobriety.
So yeah, so the 5 years that I basically was out of rehab, and you know, I went to rehab 4 times altogether, but I stumbled around just trying to make AA work for me. And, you know, for many different reasons, it just never helped me get to the point where I could maintain long-term sobriety. And then like Buddhism was like my background. Like I had a lot of trauma as a child, and Buddhism was what I used to like, I went to 10-day retreats and I healed from like a shit ton of childhood trauma that way. But I kind of left my healing tools for drinking and partying when I got older. And so when I found out that people were using Buddhism and meditation for recovery, I was like, oh fuck, like that's maybe the one thing I didn't try yet, and it's worked for me in the past. And so I basically just like went about doing exactly what I did for my mental health recovery with Buddhism. I went to a 10-day meditation retreat, and then I found like Buddhist recovery communities. And then through that, there's like Buddhist Recovery Network is a really great website, buddhistrecovery.org. I'm on the board of directors for that, and we host a lot of different teachers and online talks, and there's like a tool you can use to search for any Buddhist recovery meetings in your area, all the different types of Buddhist recovery meetings.
What? Okay.
And then I found Tempest so I've been doing Buddhist recovery for, you know, a couple of years, and I had a slip, you know, where I like literally got caught so off guard by a trigger I didn't know existed. And it was like really extreme exhaustion because I was working overnights. And my mind was just so crazy that it was just like, oh, you need to have alcohol or you won't be able to sleep after this overnight. So I fucking drank. So I had a day slip, and it was just like, you know, I tried to be very like nice about it. I don't do like day counting. So like to me, if I have a slip, it doesn't change how many days I have in recovery, because that makes me just relapse more if I do that.
You're still in recovery, so it's yeah,
exactly. And
that's so
but it scared me. It scared me because I had just started like a new meeting too, like, and I just had all these responsibilities and I was part of these groups. So it's like, I'm like, this can't happen again. Like, I need to know what my blind spots are. Like, I want to know what other tools are out there, what other wisdoms are out there, what other recoveries out there. And when I was Googling this, I found an article, and it was on hip sobriety, and it was called The 13 Essential Books for Creating a Holistic Recovery Program. And it was by Whitaker. And yeah, I was so like, holy shit, these books are amazing. And then, through that, I found out about her, like what used to be called the Sobriety School. And so it was like an 8-week school you went to learn like all the fucking information that she's learned by reading a million books. And and so now it's Tempest membership, and there's different levels. But so that's how I found out.
And it is really helpful, because I get worried with shit like that it's going to be like a pyramid scheme or whatever. But it sounds like you've gotten a ton of tools.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I've gotten a huge community, especially having been someone that was really involved with sobriety and like leadership for so long. Like, entry into Tempest was like so great. I could go and I didn't have to lead anything. Everything was taken, like a safe space was, and this is the difference between like something that's like free, which a lot of recovery is free and so great. We have so much free recovery. Tempest is something that you pay for. And that, which I would have felt weird from about a long time ago, but like now it was like, I get it, because there's literally people that are paid to keep all the space safe and all the conversation safe. and
my God,
it to
yeah.
be a very just like a healing space. And they're also able to offer so much more shit too that you can't offer. Like when it's free, it's like you have that group of people that are all working their asses off to make that one meeting happen.
Yeah.
And this is like there's a whole entire like 100-person staff in New York that's like getting paid to make like a shit ton of opportunities for us happen in the program.
Wow.
So
And jobs. I mean, right now, so I'm
Yeah.
a teacher. I'm a high school teacher, and I've
Mhm.
been teaching for 7 years. And I've only done turnaround work, so I've never had a year in my adult life that I don't want to die from stress from my job.
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I really got to find something else. And I still love teaching, like the art and craft of teaching, but I want to move away from, well, I teach at the high school I went to, which is just even more toxic because people dead name me 24/7, and it's like a whole, you know, I was like, well, why'd you cut your hair, that type of shit. And
Yeah.
so that's really triggering in and of itself, but I want to start teaching, moving toward recovery. And I think about the only fields, well, not the only field, within the recovery field, the jobs that are there are for facilities that have to charge. And
Mhm.
that's how, so it does kind of limit the options, because in the area there's maybe one holistic rehab, and
Mhm.
it's the one I went to. So it's like, that's a little awkward, but I mean, I still threw in an application because, you know, you never know. They told me when I
Yeah.
got a year sober to hit them up, so we'll find out what
Yeah.
happens.
Have you looked into like peer recovery program or like because there's like peer counseling, so that's what I do. And peer counseling was I got this like it was like a week long 40-hour training, and so now I work in peer counseling.
Is that remote
With
too?
well, I'm doing it remote now because we
Okay.
can't meet in person, but it moved to remote really easily. But I know that they have some stuff in Massachusetts, and there's different, like often you can apply for peer counseling jobs, and then they will then pay to have you trained.
Oh,
Um,
lit. No, I'm
yeah,
trying
and
to
so
do
and so
that,
it's like
yeah.
mental health recovery. So it really relates to like I work with a lot of people in like sober recovery or like in addiction recovery, but a lot of people I also work with is just in like mental health recovery, but that also like it's all the same, you
Hell
know?
yeah. I mean, the majority of the times I was hospitalized or crisis, it was a combination of alcohol and an undiagnosed or unmedicated mental illness. You
Mm-hmm,
know, and the
mm-hmm.
two are such bad friends. They really should never talk again, but
Yeah.
they're like Eve and Villanelle on Killing Eve.
Oh God, I love them.
Me too. I'm obsessed. Their relationship makes me crazy, but I'm obsessed with it. Yeah, peer counseling. Wow. Yeah, I'm gonna check into that. I'm like, I have my fingers crossed really hard for this position, but I also have all my
Nice.
eggs in one basket, and I can't.
Yeah.
That's
Well, that's
just
cool. So
poor
you
planning.
applied for the job at the
Yeah.
holistic recovery place? That's so
Yeah.
badass. I'm
But I like
excited
the
for you.
Tempest thing too. This is cool. I'm really glad I'm talking to you right now. This is like,
Oh.
I love when life happens.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad to reach out. I guess two of the things I didn't say yet that I'm like make sure I say them is well, Tempest, they have scholarships. So they like if someone goes to the Tempest site and is like, holy shit, this isn't affordable at all for me, they do have scholarships. And so and it's based on like your income and like you know your minority status and that kind of stuff. So
That's
yeah,
what's
so
up.
definitely if someone's like broke and they're like, I don't think I can pay for anything, just check it out, apply for a scholarship.
All
Like
right.
it was, you know, it was accessible for me and I was broke as fuck. So
Oh, lit.
um
Okay.
and then the other thing that I was going to say is, oh, my Instagram is
Yeah.
going somewhere sober. So I don't know if you can put that at the beginning
Yeah, for sure.
or something, because that's like the one way people can really contact me right now. I don't have a website or anything yet.
Okay, going somewhere sober. At
Yep.
going somewhere sober, y'all. You better go follow, like, subscribe, and retweet or whatever. You know? Yeah, that's what's up, though.
I went up to Seattle recently and it was so fucking cool up there because COVID, there's parking everywhere. Like parking is free.
What?
Ordering in was free. So I just like ordered a bunch of food in a hotel room. I didn't really do anything. I just like went up there to kind of get I mean, that's one thing that happened in COVID is I was like feeling so stuck in Olympia and like shit before COVID happened. And when COVID happened, I felt even more stuck. But I like found ways to just like be able to get out and like feel free and one of the ways was just to go up to Seattle for one night and like order food in a cheap hotel room.
I love that. I love that. And just park like basically right on top of Pikes and just like, this is my spot now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to both Starbucks. What's the plural of Starbucks? Starbuy?
Yeah.
That's what's up. Yeah, I've been inside a lot. My partner's super immunocompromised, which is hard for me as a non-immunocompromised person, but I can't even imagine, you know, I do have like extreme anxiety that I would, but yeah, we barely leave. I walk a lot though. Luckily I just moved to this like beautiful ass neighborhood, and we literally moved in together the week that they closed down the state. And we were high school sweethearts, but we'd never actually lived together. So we went from never living together to literally being together 24 hours a day. Like, yeah. So but good thing is we have our own rooms. So
that's really good. Yeah. Me and my boyfriend, like I feel really lucky that we live in this fucking house. Like if this had happened a year ago, I lived in this smaller house with a couple of roommates that I liked, but also had some pretty intense issues with
roommates, am I right? Yeah.
yeah, I loved them, but like fuck. And apparently one of them like had a complete mental breakdown during COVID, and I'm like, oh my god, I love them, but I'm so glad that I'm here. We found this cheap ass fucking 4-bedroom house in the middle of downtown for like $1,100.
Oh my god.
So I pay $500 something for rent in this like big ass house downtown Olympia, which is so nice.
Wow.
And it's just like so much lighting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look, so you got plants and everything. Like, yeah.
We have a whole garden in here. There's so many plants.
I love it.
So
yeah, space is really important now, I'm realizing. And it does give me time to work my program. It's tough. It's the hardest part is that I have a sister who has 2 kids that they're 2 and 5, and you know, they grow up so fast, but really they do, and I can't see them because they're not being as strict in quarantine as I need them to be, so I can go see them. But I have to just let it go because I can't put both me and my partner at risk, you know.
Can you FaceTime them? I've been FaceTiming my niece and nephew a lot. Yeah, and we were playing Pokemon together, which is really fun.
Wait, where? Like on
we both they have a Switch and I have a Switch, and so we play.
Damn.
So we play like Mario Kart Racing, and we play Pokemon, and I think there's a third game we play online together. But
that's what's up. No, I play PlayStation. I only have a PlayStation. I just play FIFA and Madden and Spider-Man.
I want Spider-Man. I'm mad that I didn't get a PlayStation 4 because I knew I wanted to get a PlayStation, but I didn't get a console. Like the last console I had before the Switch was the Wii. Wii. And so, but like now I'm like, okay, from now on, I'm buying every new system. But like the fucking PlayStation 5's taking so long to come out that I'm like, no, I want
PlayStation 5's coming. It's November, right?
Yeah,
I think they say.
But I want it now.
Yeah.
I almost keep buying a PlayStation 4, and I'm like, no, just wait.
Wait. But they're so cheap right now. Like I got mine right before COVID started, and I'm so glad. Like I got. Because all I really wanted it for was FIFA and Madden, and then I found out that I actually like Fortnite. And like my students constantly, I taught 7th grade for a couple years, and they constantly talked about it. And I was like, what is the big fucking deal with this game? Without saying fucking, because and then I started playing, and I was like, oh, I get it. I do get it. You can play on the Switch, I think, too.
Yeah. I've looked at it. I just don't like shooters that much. I get bored of shooting. I like aiming and shooting isn't like a fun control for me. Like I'm really into platformers.
Oh, okay.
And the PlayStation 5 is gonna have some really badass platformers. So I'm excited to get it.
What's that? It's like open source. Is that what you mean? Like stuff where you go and
where like you run and like Mario, like where you run and jump, and like you basically have to get really good with buttons, you know, and like for platforming.
Oh yeah, okay. So Spider-Man, like that kind of
Spider-Man, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I like Uncharted a lot.
Oh, weird.
Uncharted and like play Tomb Raider. So usually they don't. Sometimes they have guns. Like I'm totally fine with their guns being in it if it's like a story-based game, and sometimes I shoot people. But like if the whole premise is aiming and shooting, I get so bored.
Yeah, I think it's like with Fortnite, the things I like are that it's more cartoonish. Like some of the
Uh-huh.
guns aren't really guns.
Yeah.
And 80% of it is running around and looting shit and like taking
Oh,
shit
cool.
and then building so you can
Uh-huh.
build your own forts. And then
Oh, okay.
the circle, like it's a big map and there's
Mhm.
like a storm and it shrinks. So you don't want to get caught in a storm or you'll die. So
Okay.
you have to run around and try not to die in a storm while
I'm
you're
gonna have to
shooting people.
I'm gonna have to eventually give it long enough shot that I like actually know how to play the game and then have a judgment, you know?
Yeah,
Like
no, I
I haven't done
really
that
didn't
yet.
like it at first. I was like, the kids are crazy because I got it on the computer and then I got it on
Mhm.
PlayStation and it was a whole different game. I'm trying to think if I had any other questions.
Nice.
Yeah, I usually just say ask for any tips or tricks for someone who's new or might be struggling.
I would say go to try all the meetings. Do more than just one recovery program. There's so many different there's just like so much wisdom out there that it's like the more wisdom the better. Don't be scared. Don't base your recovery on fear. Like yeah, don't drink. Like that's like don't question the decision to not drink, but like seek out as much wisdom as you can. Read books if you can. Listen to podcasts, you know.
Yeah, that's
And
what's
don't
up.
be afraid to reach out to people, to be friends. Like start conversations with people, you know? Like I had to make a very intentional effort to turn like recovery buddies into actual friendships. And
Word.
so, yeah.
That's what's up. I feel that so hard. I'm gonna add you on my main. I'm at Buckswild. I'll follow you
Okay,
right after
sweet.
this. Yeah, that's what's up. And if I ever end up on the West Coast for comedy, I'm gonna hit you up.
Yeah, please do.
All right. Can we stay in touch? Is that cool?
Yeah, definitely.
Lit. All right. I'm excited to hear your podcast you have now, but also your new program. So I'll be stalking
Yeah.
you, trying to find when that's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Well,
right.
so where does this podcast come out? Because that's I don't know anything about
Oh,
that.
okay. So it's Sober During Crisis, and it's everywhere you can stream. Basically, I got
Oh, cool.
Apple, Google, Spotify, whatever, Stitcher, Podbean. It should be pretty much anywhere. And if it's not on a platform you use, just let me know, and I'll submit the RSS.
How do you promote it?
You know, that's a great cue. I Instagram. I have a Twitter. Sometimes I go into Zoom and I'll drop if the chat's open, I'll drop it in the chat for a recovery meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that as much. I just don't feel comfortable promoting it that way. I try and
Mm-hmm.
just use word of mouth as much as possible.
Yeah, I've been doing like because I right now I promote mine with Facebook groups like primarily, and that like it gets traction, but it's like I'm in the same Facebook groups promoting it in the same. So it's like I get new listeners from that because these are like you know Recovery Dharma has a large Facebook group, and
Oh,
so
word.
does you know Buddhist Recovery Network, and it's mostly Buddhist groups or like remote recovery and gay and sober. But yeah, I'm like Instagram.
Yeah.
I know Instagram's really great for getting the word out there, but yeah, I want to find like easier ways. Like I'm probably gonna eventually pay for like a Facebook, Instagram. Like when I do Recovery Discovery, I'm for sure gonna pay for ads. But
Yeah, I did. I paid
um,
for one ad. Yeah, but Facebook groups have been good too. I just try and tell anyone who guests. I just like if when your episode will be out in 2 Fridays. So I got
okay,
this week's episode and then yours. And I just if you can put it out to
yeah,
whoever. And if you have people that want to be on the show, I'm still always looking for new people to interview.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send people your way.
All right, lit. I try and keep it like one thing I've had though is people will that are like they won't know that I'm mad goofy or like they come in thinking that it's gonna be like this
Yeah,
is a podcast for robots. Like
none of my friends would be into that. So
okay,
that's
lit.
all my friends
Okay,
are goofy.
but it's
I mean, I could see if I was on podcast for the first time, I would probably have written everything down. But that's just because I am so uncomfortable. But like I've been on I do podcasts all the time, so it's
yeah. I
easy now.
usually write down like my 5 definitely ask these questions and then kind
Hmm.
of go with the flow. Otherwise, I mean, I remember my first like 2 or 3 conversations. It was just like. It just yeah, I didn't know how to interview really. Like I still kind of don't, but I'm a cool. The second I learn how, I'm not gonna like doing this anymore. So
Yeah. How do you So like, do you create pictures and post them on Instagram? Is that how you?
Yeah.
Do you need me to send you a picture or anything like that?
Lit. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
If you have one. That's what I try and do, like pictures with guests if possible. Some people obviously aren't as comfortable with that. I didn't realize what your recovery program was. It's so comprehensive, but there's so many people that really think AA or NA is the only way, and that is it.
Which doesn't make sense. That's not how it is with anything else in the world. Why would recovery be the only thing that there truly is dogma, and that's like how it is,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you. It was really nice meeting you.
Made my day.
Thank you. I hope you have a good rest of your night. It's mad late for me. It's like 10 something.
We'll sleep good.
Yeah, hell yeah. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so that's it. Thanks once again for joining us on Sober During Crisis. Thank you extra, just so much gratitude, blessings, and positive energy to you, Valentine. Thanks for being on the show. I wanted to follow up really quick on the job situation before I head out here. I did not hear back from the rehab that I referenced in this conversation. I don't know what happened. I called them a number of times, but after the third time, you kind of got to take the hint, so I'm still looking for a job. If anyone has any ideas for jobs in recovery that someone like me might be able to pursue, or any way to monetize and make a living off of this podcast, I don't know, I really just don't know what I want to do. I love doing this, and I would love to continue to work either in audio with podcasting or in the recovery field helping people one-on-one. I'm putting it out into the universe, and I'm really hoping that something happens. Obviously I'm trying to trust my higher power, and that's tough sometimes. It's tough when it comes to money. I don't know about y'all. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, and just don't pick up today, no matter what. Peace.